Hello, everyone, and welcome to a web edition of Cuse Countdown. We've got USF coming up for Syracuse's third home game of the season. We'll see if they get a W out of this one. We have Jackson, Ajello, and Emily Wood to break it down here. I'm Chris Thomsen. Guys, a tough loss last week to Louisville at the Dome. It almost seemed like one of those losses that deflates a fan base. Do you think that kind of what happened last week?
I think it'll definitely deflate the casual fan, but I think that the diehards will still show up. They definitely saw enough from the team in terms of keeping it close for at least a little bit of the game to keep coming back, to at least see a little more with a new coach.
You know, I think personally I was deflated. You know, coming into the season, you got a new coach, you got a new offense scheme. You know, you're saying we're going to have this fast offense. That shows something. That's something new, something different. Then that second game of the season, you're already getting blown out. I just think that's too deflating.
Well, it was Lamar Jackson who deflated the Orange, and this week it might be another dual threat quarterback, Quinton Flowers, coming from South Beach. Let's take a look at their two numbers, and overall very similar, especially when you get to percentages. But when you look at the bulk of those numbers, passing yards, completions, passing touchdowns, rush touchdowns, it all goes to the ACC quarterback. But Jackson, I want to ask you, is it even fair to compare these two quarterbacks since they're from two different conferences, two different styles?
I think in their style and the way they play, yes, I think it's a fair comparison for them. But in terms of their talent level, no. They're two completely different conferences, totally outclassed. Lamar Jackson outclasses Flowers. He rushed for more yards last game against Syracuse than, or Lamar has. He rushed for more yards last game than Flowers has all year.
You know, I think that at this point in the season it is fair. You know, they're both top-tier quarterbacks, and both of them haven't really been tested. You know, Louisville only played Charlotte and Syracuse, USF, Northern Illinois, Thomsen. That's not really any competition for them. We'll have to see later on in the season when they play some tougher competition, see what they can do under more pressure. That would be when I would see a better comparison.
Right. So, Emily, you say we can compare these quarterbacks. Obviously, maybe Dino might do that in practice. Don't you think it helps the Syracuse defense to prepare this week after facing Lamar Jackson last week?
You know, I certainly think it helps. Anytime you see what you're going to come up against, you can go into practice, you can say, all right, we did bad at this, we need to work on this, and you can kind of schedule your practice based on what you think you need to work on. However, I don't think it's going to be enough. I think that Syracuse is just too weak. Their secondary is too poor. They couldn't stop the rush. They couldn't stop the pass. I don't think that just seeing for one game is going to be enough going forward.
I think it certainly doesn't hurt the team, but dual threat quarterback is a dangerous word for the Syracuse defense. And from what I saw, it doesn't appear as though they're going to be able to tackle or contain them. And I think that's going to be a problem that really it doesn't even matter if they prepared them for.
Well, just going back to Quinton Flowers, last question concerning him. Obviously, we don't have a lot of faith in the defense here. Is Quinton Flowers going to rush for more yards or pass for more yards on Saturday?
I think he's going to pass for more yards just simply on the basis that this is a very depleted secondary, very weak secondary. Anton Cordy might not play in the game, and I think that that's very dangerous for this football team. And from that reason and that reason alone, I think passing yards might win this one out.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you. I think he's going to pass more. You know, he had 350 passing yards last week, only 53 rushing yards, and I think that that's going to continue. I don't think that there's any reason for them to rush too much, put himself out there, put him at risk of getting injured. When they're only playing Syracuse, you know, they probably think they're going to win this game. Why risk it? Just throw it. The secondary's weak. You're going to get yards.
All right, enough about Flowers. Let's get back to the Orange. Jackson, this Saturday, what is the key to the game?
The key to the game for me, for this Syracuse football team, is their running ability. I think they really need to run the football in this game in order to be successful because last week they didn't have that balance. Dante Strickland only had 2 yards a carry. That's very low. They need to get that ball. They need to keep moving the chains with that running game as the basis for their passing attack.
You know, I think my key to the game is that they have to minimize USF's big plays. You know, last week they went down 21-0 early, and they were all from big plays. You know, 72-yard rush, huge passing plays. None of it were from drives down the field. I think if they can stop those big plays and force them to drive, they can put themselves in some 3-and-outs or get some punts and get the ball back and see what their offense can do for them.
Right, and that's exactly what Syracuse did against Clemson and LSU. That's why they were able to stay in those games for, well, as long as they could. After a while, you know, talent just takes over. But Emily, your final score for the USF-Syracuse game?
No, I think it is going to be a close game, but I think ultimately it's going to be 45-34 in favor of USF. I just think that their defense is going to be too much. Syracuse offense is going to be able to put up points, but we saw how bad their secondary was. Quinn Flowers, he's just going to be able to shred it up. Even if they are able to contain those big plays, I think they'll ultimately come out on top.
I'm ever the optimist here. I think that Syracuse might be able to pull this one out, 51-48. Yes, it's going to be a high-scoring affair because can't really cover outside. Going to be a lot of big plays available for USF, but I think Syracuse can go strike for strike with them and pull this one out in the end.
Well, we've certainly got some optimism here in the Citrus TV studios, and we'll leave you on that note. For Jackson, Ajello, Emily Wood, I'm Chris Thomsen. Check out all of our work this weekend when we cover the Syracuse game this Saturday at 3:30 in the Carrier Dome. Have a good night.